Time now for this week's Health Matters. Paul Critz with you here, along with physician assistant Lynn Szabo and Amanda Dockter, also joining us today for reasons which will become evident. I want to say, as the roosters get going in the background, how alarmed I was to receive the email about this show. I think the announcement, the appointment, I guess it was, just the subject line. Today at 10:45 in the studio, emergency contraception.
Dun, dun, dun. We got a situation in the bug house. Time to call a meeting.
So okay, what's up? What do we need the emergency contraception for?
Well, I don't know that I would say two of us probably don't, but that's why Amanda's here. She's skin in the game.
Okay, that's
it's more
it. All right,
in theory
cool.
than in action.
It would have just been a theoretical thing we would have talked about. We've been all ho-hum about it. Oh, well, but no.
So this is actually kind of the hot topic right now because things are changing, and what used to be the norm that you could do automatically without thinking about it is now turning out as many times in medicine to be maybe we shouldn't do that.
So the norm in the norm when it comes to contraception, just in what regard?
Yeah, the norm in postcoital contraception. So
Okay.
that's contraception that failed, like a condom blowout, or I call it a whoopsie. And so when you realize, you get up the next morning and you think,
Mistakes were made.
uh-oh.
I wonder what that sound effect was. Okay, wow. All right.
And so what's your next step, or your plan B? But there's also new postcoital contraception, which is kind of different depending on where you live and what your access to care is. So again, it's political. But,
Wow, of course. Okay.
But I wanted to start with a review of the menstrual cycle, so we could say all the words, get them over with.
Now, this is important. It is.
It is totally important.
Most women I know only know about the bleeding part. They don't know about the other phases and how they impact them. And that's very crucial to the timing of emergency contraception. So, yes.
And then oftentimes when you ask somebody when was your last period, the medical person is expecting to hear the first day of their last period. Mm-hmm. And what they tell you is either a vague couple weeks ago, or they tell you the last day. So the first day of the menstrual cycle is the first day of bleeding.
Okay.
Everybody remember that. That's super important.
That's where we, okay.
I marked it on the calendar. It's good.
Yeah, so that not only gives you the time frame of when you're the most fertile, but it also dates pregnancies, and that women are super confused by that because they remember when it happened, and their provider is telling them it happened 2 weeks before, and what they're really saying, no, it dates from the first day of your last menstrual period.
Yeah,
okay?
they say when you're 6 weeks pregnant, that doesn't mean you've been pregnant for 6 weeks. That means that the first day of your last period was 6 weeks ago. So technically, you're 2 weeks pregnant before you even boned, which is impressive.
Exactly. And maybe politically relevant in other states. So after you have your first day of your period, the next phase is the follicular phase, which is day 1 to ovulation. So that's when eggs are growing. Okay, and then the lining of the uterus, which is called the endometrial lining, which is what becomes menstrual blood, is starting to thicken. And then ovulation, for a woman who has a 28-day cycle, she ovulates 2 weeks before the start of her next period, which is super confusing to people because how do you know that?
So usually in the middle if you've got a regular cycle.
So if you have a 28-day standard cycle, which a lot of women don't, then you ovulate on day number 14. Okay, so ovulation, that's the ovulation phase. Okay, so you have the prep time, you have the ovulatory event, and then you have what's called a luteal phase, which is about days 15 to 28. And this is when fertilization more than likely happens. Although I really want to say I've seen it happen just about every time of somebody's cycle. And women are always super surprised. That said, though, pregnancy at any one time, even at the most fertile, only happens about 20% of the time. Now, when we're talking about contraception in the exam room, we make it sound like don't even walk within 10 feet of them because, man, danger.
I can't go
Splash of
swimming
sperm
today,
in
sorry.
the room. You're doomed.
Yeah. But the sad truth is it only happens about 20% of the events that happen within the most fertile period. Okay?
And even then, only about a third of them actually implant, right?
Implant and then continue on to viable pregnancy.
Wow.
So
It's a game of Russian roulette up in there.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, it totally is. And it'll catch you by surprise at every single time.
So just the amount of people around, we can just infer how hard we're all trying. That's how I read it. Wow.
But in any particular high-risk sexual encounter between two adults, one who's got HIV and one who does not, the risk of transmission is only 1 in 200. So these things don't happen as often as we think they do, but they're life-changing when they do.
Yes.
Okay, that's the take-home point.
It's the kind of risk you don't want to be playing it fast and loose with.
Totally. So the majority of pregnancies are unintended, and this is what shocked me. So between 45 and 75%, depending on who you are and what your situation in life is. So the 45% unintended pregnancy rate is mostly in older adults, maybe who are in long-term relationships and they're not really looking to get pregnant, and
The not trying, not protecting demographic. Yeah.
And they definitely might be surprised, but they didn't think it could happen to them. And then 75% is teenagers.
Wow.
And they're not thinking at all, except with their hormones. So, and that, believe me, when they get pregnant, it's shocking to them. It's absolutely shocking.
It is a shock. It's
I know.
It's a life-altering thing.
Yeah, completely. But when a woman has unprotected intercourse or maybe partially protected intercourse and then realizes her risk shortly thereafter, okay, and if she doesn't want to be pregnant, we have to remember there are options, okay?
Okay.
And this is the whole point of why I wanted to talk about this. So postcoital contraception is an option that includes either pills. There's 2 types of postcoital pills, or an IUD. And this is where I thought it was weird is the reproductive health community is saying, oh, just get a copper IUD. So a copper IUD is called a Paragard. And it's not available here within 5 days. So it has to be inserted within 5 days postcoital in order for it to be postcoital contraception. Otherwise, it would just be like long-term contraception.
So is it that they actually have to, is it the Amazon Prime delay or something? I mean, is it they have to have it delivered? Why can't it be
appointments?
It's an appointment.
Even in an emergency basis, you can't go, hey, front of the line?
Are certain people qualified to insert them?
There are not very many providers up here who like to do it, or that have the skills to do it. It's a painful procedure for most women, not all women. It can be mitigated, so it's not like we're torturing them. But it's something you want to think about because you had a whoopsie on Saturday night. Do you really want 12 to 20 years of this particular form of contraception, which can make your periods heavier, more painful, more clotty, and more frequent? Somebody may not want that. Although its efficacy rate at postcoital contraception is like 99%.
Wow.
So I just don't think you could get it here. But in the conferences I was at recently, they're like, yeah, we live in San Francisco, no big deal.
Just walk on in, knock on the door, ring the bell. They'll just plop one in for you.
Right.
Whereas out here, you got to try and hope and pray that you can get an appointment with somebody who's willing to do it, able to do it, and within that 5-day window that's so crucial.
Right. And it used to be the Planned Parenthood protocol to only insert IUDs when a woman was on her period, which is not the way it's being used for postcoital contraception. That wouldn't work. So it also costs a lot. And most women, there's grant money that covers their care, but that's I think it's like $800 just to get the device
out of pocket.
And to have it's a 40-minute appointment in the clinic when I put one in. There are just a lot of roadblocks. It's not realistic for a teenager who had a Saturday night whoopsie. Okay. But the next one is Plan B, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. Plan B is 75 to 89% effective if taken within 72 hours. And so it's best if you take it within 24 hours. And so what if our Saturday night whoopsie, you don't happen to have one on hand, how could you get one? Well, Teen Clinic is Tuesday afternoon at 1. So that's past the optimal time of 24 hours, still within the 72 hours. But what if you're like most Del Norte women and you have some pounds on you? So anywhere between a 25 and 30 BMI or body mass index, then this method does not work as well as we thought. And this is where we should all just be surprised, super surprised. So women over 40, some of my references said it didn't work at all.
Whoa.
Some references say that the efficacy is still around 75%.
Women over 40 what?
BMI?
BMI or
women
years?
over, 30 BMI.
30 BMI, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha,
that's
gotcha.
pretty.
I'm like right on the cusp there of they're like, it might be reduced efficacy. And I'm like, that's a gamble.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Wow. Any indication what sort of reduction in efficacy? Like
maybe
percentage-wise?
0.
Woman.
Wow.
Like
wow.
100% reduction in efficacy.
Wow.
If the more you're over body mass index of 30,
Okay.
the worse it gets. And this is a developing story.
Okay.
So what we learned from COVID in medicine is that stuff changes a lot. And
Took
right
us
now,
till then to figure it out.
yeah, it makes it even harder. But right now, what I see online is really varied. Mm-hmm. So even if Planned Parenthood, which is usually my go-to best data, is still kind of wishy-washy on that. They're not really calling it. So,
Wow. Just because it's such a new thing to be concerned about? That you say it's a developing story?
This is where medicine was caught with its doors down, kind of, no pun intended. But yeah, we're all shocked. We're all shocked. I've been giving Plan Bs out for, 20 years.
Wow.
And it is over the counter. It is kind of expensive. Mm-hmm. It is covered by lots of insurance companies, but only a certain number of Plan Bs per year or per 90-day intervals usually.
Wow, okay.
It is hard for a teen to get at the pharmacy here. Mm-hmm. Because some pharmacies confuse it with medical abortion, which it is not.
Wow.
It's just preventing implantation. It's not actually terminating a fetus.
It shouldn't be confused with medical abortion. So there are some pharmacies that make it super hard. Mm-hmm. And so not really available up here. So what I advocate for is, and what I've been doing at Teen Clinic is giving out some to have on hand.
Wow.
Yeah. And so right now we have a big free stock of it. Mm-hmm. And I've been giving out about 4. Now, it expires around Thanksgiving, so I think that's why Del Norte got it for free. But I've been giving out 4 with some condoms for women that are interested in that.
Wow, that's good to know. When's the teen? When are you there again? When's the clinic happening?
So this is Tuesday from 1 to 5, and ideally, teen women should be the ones. It's really their turf and their time.
Right.
I'm not going to card people at the door.
Really? Okay.
If there's a sister in need, they can come. But we just talked about how it's not super reliable. And so there's something else that's better. And like many things in Del Norte, better is not always available here. But I happen to have some in Teen Clinic, and that's Ella.
Ella, okay.
Ella, okay. Ella is a different type of hormone. It's also one pill. You can take it up to 5 days after your whoopsie. You can. It's way more effective in women whose body mass index is higher than 30. Mm-hmm. It might be also the postcoital pill of choice for women that have a body mass index in the 20s, but had a lot of mid-cycle hits, is what we call them in clinic. But that's a lot of, unprotected intercourse in times when they're the most fertile. Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's better for somebody who just couldn't get access to care for greater than 3 days.
Wow.
So super better.
How new is Ella?
I just got my hands on some maybe 6 months ago, but it's been around, I would say, a year.
Okay.
And it is, as far as I know, only available by prescription. So that means that's a lot of adulting for a teen to have to do to get it.
And that's not the case with Plan B, right?
Plan B is over the counter, but it's expensive as going into the store and buying it over the counter. Ella is the retail price that Del Norte pays is $20, but I think over the counter, or no, if you went into the pharmacy with a prescription, I think it's more like $80 if your insurance doesn't cover it.
Wow. Okay.
And California law is that teenagers can request this themselves. They don't have to have a parental guardian signature, judge sign off, something like that. They are empowered to go ask
Pharmacists
for this themselves.
are able in a lot of circumstances to actually provide this as part of their job duties.
Okay, but provide what?
Provide post-coital contraception in pill form.
But not Ella.
I've never tried that. The answer to that question is unknown.
Well, you said you need a prescription, right?
You need a prescription, but a pharmacist can provide certain. They give vaccines. This kind of falls under the same thing.
Okay. Interesting. So we don't know that. We don't know. You might be able to get Ella without a prescription. You certainly are. You saying
from a pharmacist, not over the counter.
From a pharmacist. Okay. So how do you access, or would you be able to distribute your stash of Ella at the teen clinic, or at Open Door? Where were we talking?
Your stash is Plan B, not Ella, right?
No, I have Ella too.
Oh, okay, excellent.
I have hundreds of boxes of Plan B, and I have 5 boxes of Ella.
Okay. And but again, only available through you through prescription.
Right, and I write prescriptions.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I do.
Okay, I was trying to get the workflow there. I didn't know that was something that was.
And I give it to women, and I explain why it's better, and it's a little harsh to say. Well,
it's better because well,
honey, because you're overweight, you get this pill instead. So I call it an upgrade because it is.
It sounds like
it's an upgrade in every way.
Right. Yeah. It does something all of these other forms do. Right.
Right. And I think that a lot of people come in and get postcoital contraception to have on hand to give to friends, which is not a big deal, not illegal with Plan B. Probably never going to be a problem with Ella. It's like I bought an extra bottle of shampoo and I handed it off to a friend over the counter, because all that's over the counter. I think a lot of the teens are doing that. And so I'm trying to get an awareness for them that if somebody meets these special criteria, then they ought to be thinking about coming in and getting Ella because it's a better choice. Or better yet, getting on another form of birth control that has a higher efficacy. Because birth control pills are about 92% efficacy in a year in typical use. IUDs, or actually Depo, is 97%, and IUD gets close to 100%. Nexplanon is close to 100% as anything is in the world.
Why is something like Ella prescribed when something like Plan B isn't? What's the difference? What's the concern? Why is it a prescription medicine?
Well, Plan B was initially a prescription medication. Then when it went over the counter, a lot of interesting things happened. It also became generic recently. And so Plan B is a brand name, but the same medication is now called like all kinds of bizarre names, like Next Step. And the weirdest one I ever saw was Julie.
Okay.
The name Julie.
Hey.
So I was trying to think of why that would be, and I think it's because somebody doesn't necessarily want to disclose they're going to the pharmacy for a contraceptive.
Sure.
And so they say they're going to go pick up Julie.
Okay, well, that sounds equally weird. But I mean, I don't know Julie. I don't mean to shame Julie.
What are you talking about?
But is there a medical reason why Ella is available only through prescription?
No, there's a financial reason.
Okay, that's what I was
trying to... Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Or some sort of weird pseudo-moral thing or something.
So it has to go through the
It's
phase.
going through the same process that, like all new drugs, except probably for insulin, the original insulin went through, where, the quote-unquote drug company has to make their money back.
So how does fettering access do that for them, as opposed to just, hey, release it to the public, sell it over the counter?
it cranks up the price.
Gotcha. Okay,
it cranks up the price on multiple levels.
Sure.
Because you have to go to the provider to get the prescription.
Okay. So the whole system is what? Okay, it's feeding the whole
system,
thing, right.
and so you have to make the appointment, go to the provider, get okayed for the prescription. The prescription gets sent. There's a filling fee at the pharmacy. So there's like.
So is there a feeling then that after a while you just go, oh well, we've made, or the genie gets out of the bottle and there's generics available?
It's in the public domain now.
Yeah,
public
exactly.
Domain Plan B.
So we squeezed as much profit as possible.
Exactly. So
America.
Now we can make it for the good of the patient.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then they stop making them.
Right.
Which is not what's happening here, I want to say, but that's
happens.
For a while, that's happened. I think Chantix, that's happened with. It just disappeared from the market as soon as it wasn't branded.
Quaaludes.
Oh, really? No experience there.
Not approved for emergency contraceptive purposes. I want to be clear on that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Wow.
So,
Okay. So I'm sorry. Go on.
So, what I'm asking here, the whole point of this discussion, is that I would like patients who are reproductive aged females, and actually I would like men to be able to do this too, but that's another fight, to go into their provider if they think that having one of these types of postcoital contraception available to them, just sitting in their medicine chest,
in your first aid kit.
They have to ask for it. They have to know to ask for it. So ask for Ella, because that's the best choice. If you get Plan B, don't despair. They're looking at ways to take Plan B, but there's no FDA approved thing that I can discuss on the air right now. But those are not absolutely without any value whatsoever. But understand, if you're making this decision to access contraception, you should know that what you're really accessing and what it's going to do for you.
Right.
And then I also want to say, I probably should say what it's going to do to you. There really isn't any bad side effects of any postcoital contraception that's oral.
Okay.
That's a pill. I've seen irregular bleeding and spotting, but I've never seen anything beyond that, really.
I've spoken to a few women who have used emergency contraceptives, and they'll describe like nausea, like they just like a period that's maybe a little more queasy is how they describe it. So is when the period does come.
So what we would say in medicine is it's really well tolerated. So because medicine, we're not always too worried about nausea. That can be managed in other ways. But I think that women should be asking for it. So I'm asking those women to know that.
Speak out, ask for it. Keep it on hand.
Yeah,
keep it in the first aid kit. I think next to your Narcan.
That would be key for me.
Exactly.
No, seriously, that would be key for me to understand too. Is that you don't have to have a specific need to ask for it.
It doesn't have to be an emergency.
Right,
you can plan ahead.
Yeah.
Right.
But see, and I think the fact, because like with Ella, you need a prescription again, which just angers me. But that implies that, oh, no, some sort of restricted access, and you only break glass in case of. Sort of.
I would like it to be as available as Band-Aids.
Right,
we all have some form of Band-Aids in our in our bathrooms, in our first aid kit. So because remember, there's some tragic circumstances that women have to take this. And sexual assault is one of them.
Right.
And it is hard to get appropriate care in Del Norte County after sexual assault.
Yeah.
So a number of things there. Let's that also. Why as a society, and I don't know, is it wrong of me just to assume that like, in the Netherlands it's not this way, but is it just some sort of weird, crazy, quasi-moralist sort of Victorian holdover Protestant thing?
A lot of it is that confusion that people do think that it is a medically induced abortion, and it's not. It's not aborting an actual pregnancy. There's a lot of ignorance pertaining to how the cycle actually works and how fertility actually works. And so there's a huge misunderstanding that's really propagated politically that emergency contraceptives are the same thing as a medical abortion, and that's not true. And so people who have their own morality assigned to the construct of abortion then, push back against this, saying, no, it's a bad thing, it's an evil thing. And so it's an uphill battle in a lot of ways.
I just, I mean, that seems like a more detailed kind of like drilled down, like highly focused sort of version of the same thing. It's like sex is bad.
Right.
And,
obviously.
And then so this is just all part of that whole thing.
Well, there's a whole, bit of shaming sexual culture, a lot in schools like, oh no, we can't teach sex education. I'm like, I hate to break it to you. We live in the internet age. Your kids are already getting that information online and they're getting it wrong. Right. And they're getting it dangerously and they're perpetuating sexual assault and they don't understand consent culture. So yeah, you're going to want an actual sex educator giving this information to your kids because otherwise they're getting it from porn online. And you don't want to know what they're out there acting out based on that, And
the other thing is people should have choice.
Yeah.
People should have a choice. Women, I would like to see women in Del Norte County have bigger dreams and then a way to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, reproductive autonomy, as we were talking about before, is economic freedom. If you become pregnant and you give birth and you have a child, even a very, very wanted child, that then restricts your labor to a category that is not very well compensated. You're doing domestic labor, you're doing mental labor, you're doing emotional labor, and then maybe even having to hold down a job on top of that.
Right.
And
then blamed for doing it wrong.
Yes, and blamed for doing it wrong. It's a no-win situation for you. It's a lot of extra stress, and you talked about the toll that has on long-term health outcomes of young mothers and things of that. So this is claiming your freedom. This is claiming your liberty and your economic future, being able to step up and say, yes, I'm going to have this medicine on hand in case of a whoopsie.
Yeah, this is
my future.
Responsible reproductive health.
Yeah.
Yep.
Taking responsibility for your body and, yeah.
I'd sure like to be able to give it to young men. I know I probably said that, but it's not compensated for young men to have on hand.
Is that an insurance thing?
Yeah, what do you mean compensated?
Insurance doesn't cover it for men.
Financially compensated. It's probably not FDA approved, too, if you want to get super technical. But if we go back to our box of Band-Aids.
Right.
There's nothing to stop a young man from buying it over the counter.
Right. That's what keeps getting me. Is that if it's in one way we're treating it like it's almost psychoactive and restricting, and in the other sense it's like it's everybody should have. I'm just struck I guess by the dual nature of how we see ourselves and sexuality and reproductive and reproductive health and. I think probably just also what women have to face all the time, which is beyond me. I don't have any game. I don't have anything to offer in that regard.
Reproductive age women fret a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They either go one of two ways. That they're constantly terrified because a really short encounter could change their entire lives.
Yeah.
Or they just can't handle it, and they just there's plenty of young women in this community who say that it's up to fate as far as they're concerned.
Wow.
Up to fate. And I cross my fingers. I go, this is the method you're using? And they're like, well, whatever happens. Oof.
Wow.
But they don't really understand the enormity of what they're maybe going to step into.
Right.
Yeah.
So the closest thing I could find was from 2017, just a real quick Google thing while you guys were talking. And it was 2017, Del Norte led the state in teen pregnancies.
We're number one.
Yeah.
And that's disappointing that we sit here and we pretend that we have to act like teenagers aren't interested in sex. When you study lifespan development, that's literally what their hormones are doing at that point.
That's why they're there.
That's where they're at. We can't just pretend that saying "don't do it, kids" is going to help anything because then we deal with these epidemics of sexually transmitted infections and teen pregnancies and sexual assault. We have to address it because it's happening.
Economic poverty.
And wrapping just sex in this kind of this cloak of ignorance anyway just has so many downstream sort of follow along, things that happen in society and are perpetuated and spread, just our own ignorances that resonate out from that. That's my poetic little wrap up. We're just about out of time. Is there anything else that needs to be said that you'd like to get in, Lynn?
No, but ask for Ella. Ask for it ahead of time. If you're a reproductive age woman, let it be your box of Band-Aids.
Okay.
Should we give the location of the teen clinic so that people listening know where to get
from the high school? It's got a lot of different addresses. If you Google it, it's Small Avenue. But just go to the high school, turn your back on the front door, and then walk. And
it's right there. You can see there's a banner up on the end of the building, right? Isn't there a banner?
It's on the corner across from the high school into the College of the Redwoods.
It's there. It's open.
Ask for Lynn.
College of the parking lot.
It's open on Tuesday from 1 to 5. I don't card you at the door, but I also see acute care on Saturday 10 to 2. Mm-hmm. And we have Ella at Del Norte Community Health Center too.
Okay. So. Lynn, thank you very much. Amanda, thank you for joining us this week.
Yes, well, color commentary.
I know, that's usually my job.